Have you ever been in a room where everyone is waiting for something big to happen? Where the air feels heavy, and you can almost hear people's hearts beating? This is the story of such a day when a simple visit turned into a lesson that nobody could forget. It happened in France, at a famous university, and the main person in this story is President Ibrahim Traoré of Burkina Faso. It was a cool morning in Paris. The city was waking up, and the streets were busy with cars, bicycles, and people rushing to work. But inside the university, something special was happening. Students were talking in the hallways, some in French, some in English, some in languages from all over Africa. They were excited, because today, a real president was coming to speak. Not just any president, but a young leader from Africa who had made headlines for his bold ideas and strong words. The big lecture hall was already full. Some students had arrived early to get a good seat. Others stood at the back, holding their phones, ready to record every moment. Professors in suits and ties sat in the front row, whispering to each other. Some were curious, some were skeptical, and some just wanted to see what would happen. President Ibrahim Traoré arrived quietly, without a big group of bodyguards or a fancy car. He wore a simple suit, and his face was calm. He shook hands with the university staff, smiled at the students, and walked to the front of the room. Some people clapped politely, others just watched, waiting to see what he would say. The university's most famous professor, Professor Martin, stood up to welcome him. Professor Martin was known for his sharp mind and his sharp tongue. He had written many books about Africa, but he had never visited Burkina Faso. He believed he knew everything about the continent, and he liked to show off his knowledge. He started the event with a long speech about modern Africa and old traditions. He used big words and complicated ideas. Some students nodded, but others looked bored or confused. When it was President Traoré's turn to speak, he stood up, thanked the professor, and began to talk about his country. He spoke about the dreams of young people in Burkina Faso. He talked about the power of hope, the importance of unity, and the need for Africa to stand strong. He spoke in simple, clear French. He did not use big words. He talked from the heart. He said, "In my country, we have many challenges, but we also have hope. We have young people who want to learn, who want to build, who want to change the world. We do not want to be seen as weak. We want to be seen as partners." The students listened. Some nodded. Some looked surprised. They were not used to hearing a president speak so simply, so honestly. Suddenly, Professor Martin interrupted. He laughed, loud and clear, so everyone could hear. "Monsieur le President," he said, "it is easy to talk about hope and unity, but Africa is always asking for help, always waiting for Europe to solve its problems. Isn't it true that your country cannot survive without France?" The room went silent. Some students looked shocked. Some looked embarrassed. The cameras zoomed in. Everyone waited to see what would happen next. President Traoré did not get angry. He did not shout. He looked at the professor and smiled. He said, "Professor, thank you for your question, but let me ask you something. Why do you think Africa is always asking for help? Is it because we are weak? Or is it because, for many years, others have taken from us and told us we cannot stand alone?" The room was still. You could hear a pin drop. He continued, "You say we wait for Europe, but every day, young Africans wake up early, work hard, and dream big. They do not wait for anyone. They build, they create, they fight for a better life. Yes, we have problems, but we also have solutions. We do not need pity. We need respect. We need partners, not masters." Some students started to clap. The professor tried to interrupt again, but President Traoré was not finished. He said, "You have written many books about Africa, Professor, but have you ever walked in our streets? Have you ever listened to our people? Have you ever seen the courage of a mother who feeds her family with almost nothing? Or the hope in the eyes of a child who wants to learn? Africa is not a story in a book. Africa is alive. Africa is strong." Now the whole room was clapping. Some students stood up. The cameras were flashing. The video of this moment was shared online. In just a few hours, it went viral. People in Africa, in France, and all over the world watched it. They saw a leader who did not get angry when insulted. They saw a leader who answered with truth and pride. But the story does not end there. After the event, many students came to President Traoré. They thanked him for his words. Some said, "You made us proud to be African." Others said, "You taught us to never be ashamed of where we come from." Even some French students said, "You opened our eyes. We want to learn more about the real Africa." That evening, President Traoré was invited to a dinner with university leaders and professors. The room was full of important people. Some were friendly, Some were cold. Professor Martin was there too, but he was quiet. During dinner, a young French student named Lucy asked, "Mr. President, what do you think is the biggest problem for young people in Africa?" Traoré answered, "The biggest problem is not poverty. It is not war. It is not even lack of jobs. The biggest problem is when young people are told they cannot dream, when they are told they are not good enough. My job is to help them believe in themselves again." The room was silent. Even the professors listened. Traoré continued, "We need to change the story. Africa is not a place of only problems. It is a place of hope, of ideas, of energy. We need friends who believe in us, not people who laugh at us." After dinner, Professor Martin came to Traoré. He said quietly, "I was wrong today. I judged too quickly. Thank you for teaching me something new." Traoré smiled and shook his hand. "We all have things to learn, Professor. That is why we are here." The next day, newspapers wrote about the event. They talked about the moment of silence when a professor tried to embarrass a president, but the president answered with wisdom. On social media, people shared the video with messages like, "This is real leadership," and "Africa is rising." In Burkina Faso, people watched the video and felt proud. They saw their president stand tall, speak the truth, and win respect for their country. But the story kept growing. In the weeks that followed, more French students wanted to visit Africa. They wanted to see the real Burkina Faso, not just what they read in books. Some African students in France started clubs to share their culture and stories. They invited French friends to join. They cooked African food, played African music, and talked about their dreams for the future. President Traoré returned home, but he did not forget the lesson. He told his team, "We must keep telling our story. We must show the world who we really are." He started a new program to help young people in Burkina Faso learn languages, travel, and share their ideas with the world. He invited students from other countries to visit and learn together. One day, a young girl in Burkina Faso watched the video of Traoré at the university. She told her mother, "I want to be like him. I want to speak for my country. I want to show the world that we are strong." Her mother smiled and said, "You can, my child. Never let anyone laugh at your dreams." But this is only the beginning. In the next part, you will see how this one moment in France changed not just a room, but the lives of many people, both in Africa and in Europe. You will see how President Traoré's words started a wave of change, and how he faced new challenges with the same courage and respect. After President Ibrahim Traoré's visit to the French university, the story did not fade away. In fact, it grew bigger every day. The video of the professor laughing and the president's commenter was everywhere, on phones, on news websites, and on TV. People in Burkina Faso watched it with pride. People in France watched it with surprise. Even people in other countries started talking about it. Some said, "This is how a real leader speaks." Others said, "This is the Africa we want to see." In Paris, students who had been in the lecture hall could not stop talking about what they saw. Some said, "I have never seen a professor look so surprised." Others said, "I learned more in 5 minutes from President Traoré than in a whole year of classes." A group of African students at the university decided to meet every week. They wanted to talk about their own stories, their dreams, and their challenges. They invited French students to join them. Soon, the group grew bigger. They shared food, music, and ideas. They talked about how to change the way people see Africa. One day, a French student named Pierre stood up in the group and said, "Before, I only knew Africa from books and news. Now, I see it as much more. I want to visit Burkina Faso. I want to learn from you." The African students smiled. They felt proud. They felt seen. Back in Burkina Faso, President Traoré was busy. He met with his team and said, "We have a chance to show the world who we are. Let's invite students from France and other countries to visit us. Let's start a program where young people can learn from each other." His team worked hard. They sent invitations to universities in France. They made plans for students to visit villages, schools, and businesses in Burkina Faso. They wanted visitors to see the real life of the people, not just the problems, but the hope, the hard work, and the dreams. Soon, the first group of French students arrived in Ouagadougou, the capital of Burkina Faso. They were welcomed with music and dancing. They visited schools where children learned under trees. They met young people who started small businesses with almost nothing. They saw women working together to build wells and plant gardens. They listened to stories of courage and hope. Every night, they sat with their new friends and talked about what they saw. Some said, "I never knew people could be so strong." Others said, "I want to help, but I also want to learn." President Traoré met with the students before they returned to France. He asked them, "What will you tell your friends when you go home?" One student said, "I will tell them that Africa is not just a place of problems. It is a place of hope." Another said, "I will tell them that we are all the same. We all want to dream. We all want to build a better world." The story of the visit was shared in newspapers and on TV in both countries. More students wanted to join the program. More people wanted to learn about the real Africa. In Burkina Faso, young people felt proud. They saw that their stories mattered. They saw that they could teach others, not just be taught. But not everyone was happy. Some people in France said, "Why should we care about Africa?" Some people in Burkina Faso said, "Why do we need visitors from Europe?" President Traoré listened to everyone. He said, "We do not need to agree on everything, but we must listen. We must respect each other. That is how we grow." One day, a reporter asked President Traoré, "How did you stay so calm when the professor laughed at you?" He smiled and said, "When someone laughs at you, you have two choices. You can get angry, or you can show them who you really are. I chose to show respect. I chose to speak the truth. That is what my mother taught me." The reporter asked, "What is your dream for Africa?" President Traoré answered, "My dream is simple. I want every young person to believe in themselves. I want them to know they can change the world. I want them to be proud of who they are." As time passed, the story of that day in the French university became a legend. Teachers told their students, "Remember President Traoré. Remember how he answered with respect." Parents told their children, "Never be ashamed of your dreams." Young people in Burkina Faso started to believe that they could do great things. They started new projects, helped their neighbors, and spoke up for what was right. Even Professor Martin changed. He started reading more about Africa, not just from books, but from real people. He visited Burkina Faso and saw the country with his own eyes. He met students, teachers, and families. He learned that there was much more to Africa than he ever knew. When he returned to France, he told his students, "I was wrong. I have learned a lot. We must always be ready to listen and to learn." The story of President Traoré's visit did not just change one room. It changed many lives. It showed that respect is stronger than laughter. It showed that truth is stronger than pride. It showed that one person's words can start a wave of change. And so, the lesson is clear. No matter where you are from, no matter what others say, you can stand tall. You can speak the truth. You can make a difference. If someone laughs at you, do not be afraid. Answer with respect. Answer with pride. Show the world who you really are. Thank you for listening to this story. If you enjoyed it, please subscribe to our channel for more inspiring stories from Africa and around the world. Your support helps us share more stories that matter. Don't forget to like, comment, and share this video with your friends. Who knows? Maybe your story will be the next one we tell. Stay proud, stay strong, and keep believing in yourself. See you in the next video.